Hello and welcome to Tricks of the Estray channel. Today is the 7th of June 2017 and Shakira arrived on our plate today. So before I just want to share something from Shakira's webpage before we go into the full details of Shakira. I have some other stuff that I'm going to talk about, but let me just share a quick detail from Shakira's wiki page, okay? Um, if you look up Shakira's wiki page, you can actually go to her early life. We'll call her for now, but by the time we get done with the video, you'll actually see that she was a he. All right. Now, it says here that the name Shakira is Arabic, from which language it translates as grateful. It is the feminine form of the name Shakir. I want you to notice that. It says that Shakira is the feminine form of the name Shakir. Now let's read on further because I want you to notice something. From her mother, she has Spanish, Catalan, and Castilian, all right, and Italian ancestry. She was raised Catholic and attended Catholic schools, all right. So that's what I want you to note first of all, because every time I say that the Vatican controls everything and that they're in control, they own the system, they've given it as a blessing, it's a religion given to taking young children, transgendering these children before they can reach the age in which they can make a decision for themselves. These children are forcefully castrated or mutilated, as the case may be, fed hormones, and made to be products, all right, and forced to live in a sex and gender that's not the sex and gender that they were born with, typically enslaving these people. And I've always said that it's the Vatican. So I had to read that to you so you can actually see, all right? So every time I say that it's the Vatican behind it, it doesn't just sound like I'm just talking nonsense or just talking out of thin air. I want you to see that Shakira was raised Roman Catholic, all right? So let's get back. I want to talk about a few things today. And before I start, like I usually say, I always have to say that we are not against transgenders in any way, shape, or form. All right? We are not against transgenders. We have no authority to judge transgenders or anybody, all right, who wants to live an alternative lifestyle. If you want to be a homosexual, that's fine. We can come into your door. We can judge you. I mean, it's your life. God gave every one of us the right to live our lives any type of way, the way we want, and He will remain the judge over us all. So we can't judge you. We don't have no authority to judge transgenders. All right. So I want you to always remember that. Now, the second thing I want to say is if it's your first time on our channel and you're actually watching this video, you have to pause the video right here. You have to pause the video and go look for the primer video on this channel, because a lot of the stuff that I'm saying to you, you're not going to be able to understand except you watch the primer video. And I'm going to show you in a minute how to look for the primer video on our channel. Okay, so just give me a second right now and let me show you what I'm saying. So let me show you how to get the primer video. So you go to a video web page and look for this video. It's called primer right here, as you can see, right? And also I'd advise that you get the document that's attached to every video that we make. So for example, if you're watching the private video like I'm clicking on it right now, I'm gonna give it some time to load, and then I'm gonna show you what I mean. All right, so just give me a quick second and let this load. So the video loaded, and so when you get to a video, on any video that you're watching, all you have to do is scroll through the description section. You're going to see a link. When you click on that link, it will take you to a page, a document like this. This is a document advice that you should download and have handy. This document will show you the visual differences between male and female. These are visual differences that you ought to know if you're interested in knowing the difference between a man and a woman, so you can easily spot a transgender if you're interested. Because if you live in a world today, and the kind of world that we live in, you have to know the difference between male and female, so you don't get tricked and you don't get deceived. So I would advise that you do that. Now this particular document has like up to 44 pages, but I promise you, I guarantee you, it will take you 30 minutes to go through it. It just has a lot of pictures, and it'll show you the visual differences between male and female. Now, with that said, today's show is a very, very deep show, and so I have to um, talk about some things first. But before I do that, um, I wanna say something to um, the people who are leaving comments, especially if you're a new subscriber or you're a pesky agent, Vatican Jesuit trained agent. There are some channel rules that are in place on this channel. So the channel rules are this: if you're labeling someone a transgender, so for example, you say, I believe so and so and so and such is not the gender that they claim to be, you just can't make those kind of statements on our channel without providing facts. So you have to provide facts, and the facts do not have to start with you're going to talk about shoulder and hip ratios or jaw lines and index fingers and all that, which are subjective. They're not definitive of differentiating between a male and a female. So your comments have to start that so and so is male and female, and you have to say something that's related to the spine. You have to say something to the tilt of the pelvis forward, which is indicative of a female. You also have to say something indicative of the hips, where the hips at. The hips are gonna be below the crotch for a female or above the crotch for a male. So your comments have to start that way. Otherwise, those comments are gonna be deleted, as the case may be. They might be removed, and you might be blocked, because we have a lot of pesky little agents and deluded people who get on the channel and try to leave ridiculous comments. Our channel is dedicated to facts, and I still have to say that all the time. This channel is not for shock value or entertainment. All right, so we don't really care about the number of subscribers. Even if we had 1 million subscribers, it doesn't really bother. It's not the number that we're concerned about. What we're concerned about is people who are dedicated to truth. If I had only 5 subscribers dedicated to the truth as I am, that will suffice. I need more people dedicated to truth than the number of subscribers. So that's what I wanted to let you know. Now, after saying that, today's show is very, very deep. It's gonna be brutal because it's gonna be truth. So I have to put a warning up, and some of the warnings that I'm gonna put up is gonna go like this, right? One, if you do not like the Bible, you have to stop watching this video right now, because most of the stuff that I'm gonna say, it's gonna be biblical, and it's gonna come from the King James Bible. And to start with, I just want to show you a portion that it's gonna come from. It says, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. That's from John chapter 8 verse 32. It doesn't say set free. There's a difference between setting someone free and making someone free. When you're set free, that means you've been tied. When you're made free, it means that you're free. All right? So when you're free, a lot of the stories that you hear around you, when you're made free, a lot of the stories that you hear around you that put fear in your heart, all right, that make you to be cautious of everything around you, it's gonna go away. That's the real meaning of freedom. So if you do not like the Bible, I advise you to stop the video right here and don't watch it anymore. That's one of the first warnings I have to give, because there are a lot of pesky little Vatican Jesuit trained agents who this particular video is going to be turning their stomach upside down. Now, the next warning I have to put up is this: if you're racist, I'm not going to define what a racist means, because there's a difference between prejudice and being racist. All right, if you're prejudiced, prejudice means that you dislike somebody for no reason. Prejudice is healthy. Now, what we hear in the media every day is your government, which is Vatican led, trying to confuse you between the meaning of prejudice and racism. Prejudice means that you can dislike somebody or anybody for no reason at all. So why am I saying that? For example, you can't get along with everybody. Some people don't like people whose breath smells. So if you don't like someone whose breath smells, that's prejudice. You might say, I don't like a white person. That's prejudice. You might say, I don't like black people. That's prejudice. You might say you dislike one ethnicity or the other. That's prejudice. And there is nothing wrong with prejudice. Prejudice is healthy. Prejudice protects you. All right? Because, for example, you might say, I don't like thieves. You can be prejudiced against thieves because you don't want thieves stealing your stuff. So prejudice is healthy. Now, what is racism? Racism is when you take the prejudice you have, just like I have defined it, all right? And you make sure that because of your dislike for somebody, that you physically hurt the person or you financially hurt them. So I'm going to explain why. So, for example, let's say you do not like white people, all right? And you're prejudiced against white people, which is healthy. You just may not like the way some folks look who are white, or you may not like the way some folks look who are black, all right? That's prejudice. It's fine. But let's say, for example, because you do not like white or black people, and the person walked into your shop, all right, to buy something, and you said you're not selling your stuff to that person. That's racism. Or let's say you're hiring people for the job in your company just because you do not like white or black people, and they walked into your store. Just because they're white or black, you refuse to give them a job. Then that's racism. Or let's say let's say you have white and black people working in your job, but you decide to pay the black people more than the white people. That's racism. All right? I've just defined that. Now, if you're racist, this video is not going to be good for you. So you need to stop the video right here and just quit. All right? Another warning. If you're a white supremacist, why do I say white supremacist? Because the current administration of the Vatican, who runs the world, is white. So white supremacy is an ideology in which anybody can practice as long as the beneficiary, all right, is the white ethnic master, which happens to be the Vatican in the world today. Okay? So that's the best way I can explain it. So with racism, you can practice racism is it's practiced against a different ethnicity for the benefit of your own ethnicity which you come from. But white supremacy can be practiced by anybody. It doesn't matter if the person is white, black, yellow, blue, or green, but as long as the beneficiary happens to be the white supremacist who runs the world today, which happens to be the Vatican. That's the best way I can explain it. So if you fall into any of those categories, you need to pause the video right here. Pause the video or stop it and quit, because this is going to be brutal truth. It might be hard for your ears to hear because some people don't really want to hear truth. They just want to hear some sides of it. So the best way I can put it is this. Let's say, for example, that you've lived with someone for over 20 years and you never knew that the person had a history of killing women. And then all of a sudden one day you go to a store and somebody tells you that they know him, that he's killed over 25 people, but he's a changed man right now. You might be suffering from a delusion hearing that, because you cannot accept all truth that the person that you've loved and been with has been a killer. So that's how people are when measuring the truth. There are certain things they want to hear and there's certain things they don't want to hear. But on this particular show, on this particular video, if you were like that, you need to stop the video right here and quit, because it's going to be hard to hear. All right? So with that said, I'll start off the discussion with something that I think you guys should know. So today I want to talk about the Vatican, who's controlled by the devil himself, and why the Vatican hates the Bible. right? Why they're anti-God? Because at the end of the day, what the Vatican actually practice is Luciferian religion. I don't want to pronounce the word because it's way too long. So I want to tell you why the Vatican hates the Bible today, especially the Geneva Bible and the King James Bible. And I'm going to talk about why they use racism to keep themselves afloat. For example, when you watch TV today, you see a lot of racism. Most of them is manufactured. Why they want to keep people racist, okay? I'm going to show you and tell you why that is today. So, like I'm saying, the Vatican hates the Bible, and they have valid reasons for hating the Bible because first of all, they worship the devil. They worship Lucifer. Luciferian. I don't know how to pronounce the word right now, but it's a Luciferian religion. That's what I'm trying to say. They worship Lucifer. And so, the reason, one of the aspects that they hate the Bible that much is because it seems like the Bible was the one book. It seems like God was snitching on the devil. Can you imagine that, for example, can you imagine living a life in which everything you want to do, somebody else already knows, and he's snitching on you all the time? And you can't deviate. You keep doing what he's telling you or what he's saying that you're gonna do. Can you imagine that? Right? So I'm going to show you why the Vatican hates the Bible, because God, it's like God wrote a script telling the devil what he would do. He keeps snitching on him, and the devil can't run away from him. So the best way he tries to do it is, set up people, right, to misinterpret the Bible and translate the Bible. That's why the Vatican is so much involved in making sure that they put people up who are going to give you a bad translation of the Bible, all right? Change it from what it ought to be to what it not ought to be. That's where you have such things as, the rapture coming out from the Bible. Because, for example, if you read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, all right, let's say number the number of people who were actually taken into heaven. But if you read how God has destroyed the world, for example, during the flood of Noah, all right, when he destroyed the world, Noah wasn't taken out of heaven. He was still here on the earth. And for example, when God wanted to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot wasn't taken out of the earth. He was freed. He was still in the earth, but he was separated from the destruction. So what makes people think today that there is going to be a rapture is because the Vatican instituted that rapture ideology. God doesn't change his ways. When he wanted to destroy, let's say, Egypt, or when he wanted to destroy the world through the flood, he saved Noah and his kids. When he wanted to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, he saved Lot. He didn't take them to heaven. They were still here on the earth. In the same way, he's going to do the same thing again, one last time. So this whole ideology about rapture, it's fake. It's not real. And it's taken from a few paragraphs in a book which I don't have time to go into. Maybe sometime I'll do it some other day. But today is not the day for that. So when dealing with the Vatican, there's certain things you have to come to understand. If the Vatican tells you, because they worship Lucifer, the religion is Luciferian, all right? In Luciferian religion, good is evil and evil is good. So if the Vatican tells you that something is right, you have to go left, because that's just the way they operate. So for example, let's say if you've ever read and heard that they say that human civilization, or the cradle of human civilization, started in Africa, and they tell you that it's somewhere in Northeast Africa, just because the Vatican said so, and because they control the educational system and everything else, including the medical profession and everything else, if they say that it started in Northeast Africa, the cradle of civilization, that means when this world was restarted by Noah, and his ark. It started in Africa. When they say it started in Northeast Africa, then I'm going to say that it started in, sorry, when they say it started, I'm going to put that right. If they say it started in Southeast Africa, I think that's the right way. They say it started in Southeast Africa. I'm going to say that it started in Northwest Africa, close to the Lake Chad region. Because there's a place in that Lake Chad region which historically and linguistically claims to be the land of Noah. I know it's there. I've seen it for a fact. Historically and linguistically, these people say that that land is the only land in the world which has the annotation to be the land of Noah. But the Vatican tells you that the cradle of human civilization started in Northeast Africa. Oh, sorry, in Southeast Africa. But in truth, like I said, it's Northwest, towards the Lake Chad region. All right. So that is one of the things that I want to talk about today, on why the Vatican hates the Bible, right, so much, especially the King James Bible. All right. So with that said, let's start this story at some place that you can understand. Now, someone may say, for example, that the story of Noah is not actually true. That means you don't believe the Bible. But I'm going to present certain facts to you that will make you question that. The first fact I want to present to you is like, the Bible says that there was a flood, all right? And I want you to look around the world. What covers this earth the most? Is it land or is it water? Because we've come to an understanding that 3/5 of the earth is made up of water, or even more. And you have only 2 feet of land. So that's fact number one. There's water all around you. Now, there's a particular video you guys need to watch before I continue the next statement. I'm going to point you to that video right now. So the video I'm going to point you to is actually the Tom Brady video. In that Tom Brady video, I start to explain that if we look up into the sky, we will notice that the sky has the same color as the sea. And I asked if there is a possibility that if the sky has the same color as the sea, that means there's water above us. I asked that question. And so if you've watched the video, this particular video up to now, I need you to go into the Tom Brady video and watch like the first, I think, 15 minutes or 10 minutes, and then you can come back and continue the video from here on. All right. So you do that. It's called Tom Brady, Transgender, Transsexual. Watch that, and then you can come back and continue watching this video. And I'm sending you guys a long spiral of circles around, but I need you to do that. Now, why is it important that you watch the Tom Brady video? Because I'm talking about Noah. I was giving you facts about the fact that there was a flood because the earth is surrounded by water. There is more water on this earth than there is land, and that's a fact. So that's fact number one. Now, fact number two that I want to point you to see that there was actually a flood, you have to go look into what they call the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Now, why am I pointing you to the Mid-Atlantic Ridge? Because there's a portion in the Bible in Genesis which says that the fountain of the deep broke. I'm going to point you to that portion so you can relate to what I'm saying. Okay? So let me point you to that particular portion, because when you when you look up, I mean, science can explain what the Mid-Atlantic Ridge is, all right? But it's right there in the Bible, okay? Because you can see this Mid-Atlantic Ridge right here. It's a crack in the Earth's surface that splits the whole Earth up into two. Because you have to understand that the whole Earth was at one point in time just one big land mass. And just like I said, like even till today, the whole Earth is connected by land bridges, whether it be Alaska from North America into Russia, right? The whole Earth is one big landmass. The only really a separate continent, or let's say is the continent of Australia, if you want to call it a continent. But as you can see right here, there is a mid-Atlantic ridge. And the Bible clearly explains that in the book of Noah. It says, the fountains also of the deep and the windows of heaven were stopped, and the rain and heaven was restrained. I think I'm reading the wrong portion. So let me actually get you to the right portion, in which it says that that it actually was broken up. Okay, just bear with me for a quick second. So it's actually chapter number 7 in the book of Genesis, which explains that mid-Atlantic ridge. It says here, if you read in verse 11, all right, I just have to follow my mouse because I don't want to read everything. It says, the same day were all the fountains of the great deep broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened. So, like I had explained, you have to watch the Tom Brady video. If you watch the Tom Brady video in which I asked the question that if the sky is the same color as the seas, that means technically there's water above us. If there's water above us, that means what the Bible says about the firmament in the midst of heaven, all right, separating the waters from the waters. That means the waters above the firmament from the seas that we have down here. Then that means that this is actually the great deep, because there's a crack in the earth's crust, showing you that the Bible is actually real. Now, someone may ask me now again, so how about the windows of heaven? So I'm going to show you that as well. You guys have probably heard about the great rifts in astronomy. And as you can see, science tries to explain it away, because there's fixed science, and fixed science is owned by NASA. It's owned by the Vatican. NASA is owned by the Vatican. Okay, you just have to know that. They say that the great rift, sometimes called dark side dark rift, or less commonly dark river, is a series of overlapping non-luminous molecular dust clouds that are located between the system galaxy and the side. I don't want to read too much because this is just nonsense. Okay, if you can see the great rift, when you look up in the sky, it looks like there's a crack in the sky, a crack in the firmament. The best way I could explain it is, for example, let's say you have a cracked glass or windshield, and you try to shine light through it. The light scatters in or refracts in a different kind of way. And that's what you see with the great rift. There is a crack in the firmament. So if this is real, if there is a crack in the sky, in the firmament which separates the waters above from the waters below, then this confirms what the Bible says. There is no other explanation for it. The great rift. Now someone may say that sounds stupid, all right, or retarded. Like I said, I gave a disclaimer back at the beginning of this video. If you do not believe the Bible, don't continue downwards, because I'm explaining what is the windows of heaven. Because let's technically say, where does rain come from? Science says rain comes from clouds gathering water. Why do we still have clouds? Question mark. Why do we still have clouds? Have clouds on a rainy day and still have clouds on another rainy day. Where does it come from? So the Bible is the only place that explains this, such that you can understand that the mid-Atlantic, all right, the mid-Atlantic ridge right here, okay, and the dark rifts that you see in the night sky above you explains what Genesis chapter 7 verse 11 says, that the fountains of the great deep broke up and the windows of heaven were opened. There is no other explanation for it. So this is one of the things that makes the Vatican dislike the Bible, because like I said, they're controlled by the devil themselves. Because this whole control Now here's something I have to make people understand. All right, we're in this world to know the truth, because if you do not know the truth, all right, you're in the same position as the devil, and that's the way God sees it. Because there are people who dislike truth, who have no care or concern for it. So we're in this world to know the truth, because as I said earlier, you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. All right. So I'm gonna further explain more why the Vatican really hates the Bible. So where I'm gonna start, I'm gonna show you a timeline, and I'm gonna start with Martin Luther. All right. I want you to notice the date Martin Luther was born and the year he died. November 1483, 18 February 1546. I want you to take note of that. Why is it important for you to take note of that? Because you have to understand that in this time that Martin Luther was alive, all right, the Vatican had a strong hold on every country. The whole world was Roman Catholic. The known world was Roman Catholic. Right? Now, Martin Luther started what we call the Protestant Reformation, because today a lot of people don't even know what it means to be Protestant. So, in this case, what really happened was, like I've said earlier, the Vatican had a stronghold on everything, even the studying of the Bible. The Bible was written in Latin. So that means if, for example, you're Turkish or what ethnicity you are, and you don't understand Latin, you wouldn't have an understanding of the Bible. Because the priest would come forth, take up the Bible, and read it in Latin. He may decide to give you an explanation in your own language, but all you had to do was say Amen, like they still say in Mass today. The reading of the book, and they say Amen. So imagine back in that time, right? In the time of Martin Luther, as you're looking at my screen, that someone would study or make you read the Bible to you in his own language in which you understand, and you wouldn't say Amen. Nobody understood this. Now, why was it important that the Roman Catholic system prevailed this way? Now, you have to understand that during the time of the so-called Christian era, in which the apostles, after Yehoshua had died, had given them the mandate, all right, to preach the gospel to the whole entire world, a lot of people, because of the freedom that was being preached to them, became threats to monarchies around the world. And you have to know this was the Roman era, not the Roman Catholic era, but the Roman era in the time of the Caesars. So the preaching of freedom, the preaching then making people to understand, all right, that someone created this world, and the miracles that follow the preaching of the gospel became a threat to the whole entire monarchy of all kingdoms. And as usual, since the devil is always at the hands of all the kingdoms of this world, because that's just what the God says he is. He's the God of this age, not the God of the world. God of the age of human beings. That's what I'm trying to make you understand. So when you study the Bible, you know what it means. He's God of the age of human beings, because this world is human beings right now. We will not be human beings if there is a God, and according to the Bible, the way he's gonna make turn the world around at the end of the day. We may not all be human. Again, that's from the place where, if you study in the book of Apostle Paul, when he says we shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed. What does it mean? We shall no longer be human beings. We will be something else, but not human, because humans are susceptible to death and disease and all that. That's what he meant. We shall all be changed. So imagine that this gospel was preached to a lot of people around the world, and they knew that they wouldn't have to bow down to no king or queen anymore if he wasn't following the gospel. It was a great threat. All right? And so when this happened, the devil had to infiltrate the so-called Christianity, because I don't call it Christianity. It's the name that was given by those who were outside, all right, of the Bible. Because if you study the Bible, you will see that Apostle Paul or Yehoshua never called them Christians. He called them stuff like brethren, beloved, saints. Christianity was the name the devil gave, all right, so he could infiltrate the body of Christ. All right. So now what happens is this: when Martin Luther noted that the Pope at that time was not of God, that the whole Roman Catholic system was a power structure, a control structure, and that they were not worshiping God. Remember, Martin Luther was a monk himself. So Martin Luther now wrote the thesis, which he pasted on the wall of the Roman Catholic kingdom. Right? When he did that, people who came around started saying, are you saying for real that all what the Pope has been doing to us? Because remember, in this era, there were so many preachings of the Roman Catholic, which goes on today, all right, which still goes on to today, that it's not biblical. For example, the worshipping of saints, the worshipping of the Virgin Mary. It's not biblical. All right? Purgatory is not biblical, but it's still practiced today. All right? The liturgy, the Mass, it's not biblical at all. So when Martin Luther did this, Martin Luther and some other people started translating the Bible. It's from that translation that we have the Geneva Bible. So if you go to if you go up and look at the Geneva Bible, now the Bible that you have to the Geneva Bible and the King James Bible, when they started out, they had 80 books. They had certain books called the Apocrypha that was in the Geneva Bible. And if you actually want to read the Geneva Bible, which I suggest you do, because this was a book that was translated by Martin Luther and certain other believers around the time, that could show you that he had marginal notes, he had cross references that would make you understand what you read. So when Martin Luther translated the Bible and people started reading the Bible, they got to see that a lot of the practices of the Roman Catholic Church and the Pope was not entrenched at all in the Bible, and people start rebelling. All right? Because if you read the Geneva Bible with its marginal notes, now I suggest that you get the 1560 edition of the Geneva Bible, which you have all the marginal notes written by Martin Luther here himself and some other people. And let me pull that up so you can actually see what I'm saying. So I'm going to show you the page on the Geneva Bible. Now, I want you to take note of the year, like I said, in which Martin Luther died, which was February in 1546. Now, because of Martin Luther's revolt against the Roman Catholic Church, it brought about the Geneva Bible. And the people who were involved in providing that, if you go to, I'm still using Wikipedia to show you this. If you go to the history of the Geneva Bible, you see the Geneva Bible here followed the Great Bible in 1539. All right, and it contains so much marginal notes. So if you want to get the full Geneva Bible, you have to like get the 1560 edition. Now I'm going to point you to a particular website of note in which you can actually take a look at it, and this is the website. Actually, you can pause the video right here and just copy out that link right there, paste it in your browser. It will take you to the Geneva Bible, even though it doesn't contain the Apocrypha, but it still contains some of the Magellan notes. So, for example, if you look at chapter 13 of the book of Revelation that I'm actually opening here in the Geneva Bible, you would see it contains notes, because people like Martin Luther, all right, and I think John Calvin, and the people who were at that time translated the Bible, and to their understanding, they put certain notes, all right, which made people understand that the Bible, the book of Revelation, is specifically the book of Revelation chapter 13, was talking about the Pope and its kingdom. So I'm gonna show you just a little bit of the notes inside the Geneva Bible. Now you have to understand there's a difference between notes and cross references. Notes in the Geneva Bible are what the translators think have come to an understanding after putting certain facts into cognizance that this is what the Bible is talking about, all right, the Geneva Bible. And then cross references are just cross references which, for example, you can compare chapters and verses which are not in the same book. That means you can cross-reference a chapter from the book of Daniel with like a chapter in the book of Revelation. Now, the key to understanding the book of Revelation and understanding the Bible, because I'm still moving gradually to make you understand why the Roman Catholic Church hates the Bible so much, and by the time we get to the end of this particular video, you'll get that firm understanding. It's going to be a long video. It's going to probably be up to me an hour and 30 minutes from the way I'm seeing, so just bear with me. If you can't finish watching it at one time, you can pause it and then come back and continue watching some of the time. So now, for example, what I'm going to show you here is one of the notes that were left in the Geneva Bible, all right? I'm going to show you a note which references the Roman Catholic Church, okay? So before I read what's in this particular chapter of Revelation 13 in the Geneva Bible notes, I want to give you a key to unlocking the book of Revelation, because once you have this key, you're going to have a firm understanding of who the Revelation is talking about in the Geneva Bible, all right, and the King James Bible, and that will go to show you why the Vatican hates the Bible so much and why it spends so much money to make sure that you don't understand it and give you false theologies like rapture, so you can get to divert your attention from the truth, so that you won't see what it's actually saying, because there's never going to be any rapture. I don't have to argue this with anybody. If you believe there's going to be a rapture, then that's fine. Because like I've stated before, the way God did things when he destroyed the world during the time of Noah, Noah wasn't raptured. No, he was saved from it. He was still in the earth. When he destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, Lot wasn't raptured. He was saved from it. God always saves from destruction. He didn't rapture nobody. All right? He raptured a couple of people, maybe like Enoch and Elijah, and that was that. There were only two people. And God has his own reasons for doing the things the way he does. We are not here to argue with you. He's not there to argue with you. But I'm just trying to show you from the Bible how the whole theology is been twisted upside down by the Vatican, who's put paid people, who's put Freemasons in front of you. It doesn't matter if the person is like T.D. Jakes. It doesn't matter if his name is Creflo Dollar. It doesn't matter if his name is Kenneth Copeland or Joel Osteen, or way back in Africa, I think we have someone who's called by the name of Chris Oyakhilome. It doesn't really matter. All these people are liars. Because how do I know there are liars? There are certain truths that you have to understand if someone is telling you the truth about the Bible. One, they have to recognize the name of God. His name is not Jesus. It's been translated wrongly. His name is Yehoshua. If you wait to be translated in today's English, his name would be Joshua. So if anybody comes to you and starts preaching in the name of Jesus, even though he might be preaching in error and he doesn't really know the truth. That's just fact. Because the first step in knowing anybody is knowing his name. So somebody might argue with me and say, but it's a translation. It's not a translation. Let's say, for example, your name is John Waters, all right? And your passport bears the name John Waters. If you go to China and water is interpreted or translated as Shayu, if I'm right, I don't quite remember my Chinese pretty much. But if waters is translated as Shayu, and you go into the airport and somebody calls Shayu, will you answer? No, you won't. It's a translation. A name is a name, because if you change the name of anything, it is not what it is anymore. So, for example, I can give you a typical example in one of the most popular transgenders now in the world, whose name was Bruce Jenner. You can't call him Bruce Jenner. You have to call him Ketlin, even though you know his name is Bruce Jenner. He's not gonna answer. Does it make sense? So, if someone translates your name, it is no longer your name, because a name, like the definition of a name, means, all right, it's a noun. It's something that identifies you. It's your address. So if someone changes your address, you're no longer who you are. Because, for example, if you live in a certain address, all right, and you change that address, or you move out from your apartment to a different address, you're no longer domiciled there. That's what a name is. A name addresses you. So that's the first step you have to know in all these so-called pastors and ministers I call them deceivers, because they're not telling you the truth. Because they told you the truth, they would tell you that the name of God Almighty today is known as Yeshua. All right, Yehoshua for the long short, which means Yah saves, or Joshua if they wanted to say it in today's English, because the letter J in the first place is just a new pronunciation. That's, for example, in Latin or in Spanish. Let me use Spanish for example. Right? You never hear the name Jesus. You hear Jesus. Right? You never hear the name Jose. Is Jose, because the letter J never existed until 450 years ago. All right? There was no letter J. It was an I or a Y. So that's how you know that these people are actually deceiving you. Because first of all, they're not telling you the name of God. Now, the second thing that you have to understand is that none of these so-called televangelists on TV ever tell you that to be Protestant means to protest against the Roman Catholic Church, which has been the #1 enemy of all humankind. They've never told you that. So that's another fact to show you that these people are not of God. There are trained Vatican Jesuit Freemasonic people who are here to misconstrue the word so you don't see it. You don't understand. The Vatican is heavily invested in the Protestant religion. It's a religion now. It's no more Reformation as it was before. Okay? So in order now to understand, before I go into reading this particular portion in the Geneva Bible, there are certain things you have to understand. There are two codes I'm going to give you. Once you get the code, when you read the book of Revelation, all right, you're going to understand, all right? So, for example, when you read the book of Revelation, the word a woman is used. Now, a woman in the book of Revelation means church. So whenever you see, the first quote I'm telling you right now is, whenever you see the word woman in the book of Revelation, it means church. I'm going to show you why it means church in a second. I'm going to take you to the book of Ephesians, all right? In the book of Ephesians, I'm going to read from chapter number 5, okay? I'm going to read from verse 23. It says, "For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church and his savior of the body." Does it make sense? He's likening wife here, right, to church. A wife is a woman. I'm going to read further down. So, therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, So let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. It's likening church to wives again. Can you see so? Down the last verse, it says, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. See that? It's likening wives to church, woman to church. So that's the very first key in the book of Revelation if you want to understand what it's talking about. I'm going to give you the second key in a minute. So the next key to understand in the book of Revelation I'm going to give to you is that when you see the word king, when you say the word beasts, all right, in the book of Revelation, beast means kingdom, kingdom and kings. That's what you have to understand. So I'm going to read this for you so you can actually see. And I'm in Daniel chapter 7. I'm going to read from verse 23. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon earth. Can you see that? A beast is a kingdom, right? A beast is a kingdom. You can read further on up to verse 25 so you can actually understand that when he talks about a beast, it's referring to a kingdom, all right? And as you can see here in verse 24, it says, and the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings that shall arise. Can you see that? 10 kings that shall arise. So when you study in the book of Revelation, those are the keys that you have to understand. When you see a woman, it means church. When you see beast, it means kingdom or kings. When you have those code and you study the book of Revelation, you're going to unlock its meaning. Now, here's what I'm going to read to you from the Geneva Bible so you see why the Bible is such a big threat to the Vatican. And then after that, I'm going to give you a little bit of history, right, to see what actually happened. Now, remember, I had said earlier that in the Roman Catholic kingdom, during the times in which the Roman Catholic kingdom was ruling very well until the time of Martin Luther, right, the Bible was written in Latin. That means they only had the full control and knowledge over the reading and understanding of the content of the Bible because it was written in Latin. So anywhere they went in the world, even as of today, when you get into a Catholic church, the Bible is still read to you in Latin. All right. So I'm going to read a portion here from the Geneva Bible in that particular notes that people like the people who started the Protestant Reformation put down. You can pause the video and copy the link right out there and put it into your browser and you can read. So I'm going to read a particular note from that. I'm reading from chapter 13, the commentary, right? Like I said, you have to know there's a difference between notes, cross-reference, all right? I'm reading from the notes, which is a commentary. Now, I'm reading here from chapter 13, when he's trying to explain the verse 18 of chapter 13 in the book of Revelation. For it says, for to this beast of Rome, means it's talking about the Vatican, and you'll see as I scroll further on, which of civil empire is made an ecclesiastical hierarchy, that's the right pronunciation, I'm sorry, are given divine honors and divine authority so far as he is believed to be above the scriptures. Who is above the scriptures? The Pope says that he's above all Bible. He can make and create any law. He's above the scriptures. So I'm just reading it on to you so you can see what the people who started the Protestant Reformation wrote about the Pope. Now it says, which the gloss upon the decretals declares by his devilish verse, articulus solvit synodumque facit generalem. That is, he changes the articles of faith and gives authority to general councils, which is spoken of the papal power. All right, I'm going to continue reading. So the beast, remember when I said the beast is a kingdom? So I'm going to put it right, the word right, I'm going to read it right. So the kingdom is by birth, foundation, fiat, and finally substance. One, only the Pope has altered the form and manner of it, being himself the head both of that tyrannical empire and also of the false prophets. For the empire has he taken to himself, and to it added this cunning device. All right? I just want to stop there. If you want to read more, all right, I advise you that you get the 1860, the 1560 Geneva Bible, which contains the Apocrypha. All right. I'm gonna go. On this particular journey. I'm gonna show you why the book of the Apocrypha, because the Bible, the Geneva Bible, and the King James Bible, right, were 80 books at the beginning, and now there are 66 books. And you have to understand, when it's 66 books, that means the Vatican is also tampered by removing those 15 books. You can still get the 15 books if you go for the 1611 King James Bible or the Geneva Bible. But I suggest that you get the Geneva Bible. So you see what these guys wrote about the Roman Catholic Church at that time in the 1500s. All right? So I'm going to show you a little bit of history about the Geneva Bible. And you can pause the video, all right, and copy out this link right there, paste it in your browser, and you can give and see a little bit of history. I'm going to read a few things from this particular page just to show you something. Now, the guy here talks about, like, he says, like nearly all early Protestant Bibles, the Geneva Bible contained the Deuterocanon, gathered together into an appendix between the Old and New Testaments, titled Apocrypha. All right? So all Bibles always had an Apocrypha. Now, why was it taken out? I'm going to show you what this guy actually says. All right? I'm going to read from this particular web page, which I asked that you should copy out, paste it in your browser, and go read what it's saying. Now, let me start reading. He said, the Geneva Bible also sported, like the early editions of its authorized counterpart, cross-references to the Apocrypha in the New Testament. The importance of these cross-references should not be minimized, all right? Remember, I told you there's a difference between cross-reference and notes. Cross-reference means you're comparing one Bible passage, which is not of the same book, all right, together. That means you could compare, let's say, a Bible passage taken out of the book of Revelation with the book of Daniel. Does it make sense? Okay, now I'll continue reading. It says, they demonstrate that the early editors believed that the Apocrypha played an integral role in the New Testament text. All right. Now, it is believed, according to history, this is the official history, which is actually a lie, that the Apocrypha were historical books. Now, no doubt there were historical books, but there was a reason why the early translators of the Bible put it in there, so you could cross-reference what it was saying with the New Testament, even though it was historical or not canon. Now, I don't know who decides who a book is canon and who decides who is history, but that is what the early church scholars who started the Reformation did. So, and I'm going to read further. It says, the Apocrypha played an integral role in the New Testament text, and that the cross-reference text aided the Protestant reader in understanding and interpreting the New Testament. As time moved on, these benefits were overshadowed by anti-Catholic prejudice. Can you see that? So it was Rome, it was the Vatican who removed the Apocrypha, because they own all the publishing companies today. Does it make sense? By proxies. So it says, as time moved on, these benefits were overshadowed by anti-Catholic prejudice and the desire to minimize the books that the Catholic Church reaffirmed as inspired scripture. Can you see that? So it was Rome, the Vatican, that removed those 15 books. You can still get it today if you really want it. All you have to do is Google the Bible, all right? Like, for example, the Geneva Bible with Apocrypha, and you have a lot of results. So can you start to see how the Geneva Bible became a threat? Because the Geneva Bible contained notes which showed you that Rome was the kingdom he was talking about, and the Pope. Can you see that? And the Pope as his head, which I'm going to show you in a minute. I'm going to open up that particular portion of the Geneva Bible that I just closed and show you that again. So here we are again in that particular note that I read to you, because if you clearly read from here down, right, you see that the early church people, way back in the 1500s, knew that the Bible was real and knew who the Pope was. Okay? They knew for a fact who he was. You can read that. I'm going to close that and go back to a little bit of history. All right? Remember the timeline I showed you about Martin Luther. So we're going to go back there and show you some more interesting facts. So here's the timeline now. Martin Luther, who started the Reformation, a monk in the Roman Catholic Church, who hung his thesis up on the wall telling people that the Pope was not of God, and started the Reformation. And from then, people started translating the Bible. That means translating the Bible into their own languages, right? So Martin Luther started it. He first of all translated the Bible into the German language from the Latin Vulgate, all right? And then other people started translating the Bible, all right, into their own languages. And people started having the Bibles from themselves. It's from the Bible that we have the printing presses of today. The Bible started the revolution of printing presses, from where you get newspapers, all right? So now when this happened, this became a threat, because now people were studying the Bible for themselves and seeing that so many laws that were passed upon them by the Roman Catholic Empire and the Pope and his kings and his queens were not of God. And so you can imagine what trouble that would cause for somebody to actually stand up. And this caused so many people to actually believe in God Almighty. And actually their eyes were open and they saw the truth, just like I showed you in the Geneva Bible. All right. So now here is what happened. I'm going to start this story with Mary I of England. Now, at the time the Reformation started, the English kingdom was so vastly spread and had so much lands around the world. All right. And now they had a problem of the Geneva Bible. Now remember, the Bible, just like I showed you in Geneva Bible, had notes talking about kings and queens, not just the Pope, telling you that you do not have to obey any king or queen who was not acting according to the Bible. So you can imagine the problem that the Roman Catholic kingdom had and all its subsidiaries. So now remember the timeline I showed you, all right? 1483 to February 1546, in which Martin Luther lived and started the Reformation. So we go to the next timeline. Remember the year is 1546. And we have the Queen Mary I of England, who was the Queen of England. And she started, right? She was born 1556. But you can see at the date that she died, she was reigning until 1553 and died in 1558. So that's still within the timeline that Martin Luther here lived in 1546. Right? So we're going to read a short story about Mary, Queen of England. Now it says, I'm going to read it. I'm just going to read everything so you can actually see. It says, Mary I, 18 February 1516 17 November to 17 November 1558, was Queen of England and Ireland from July 1553 until her death. Her executions of Protestants led to the posthumous sobriquet Bloody Mary. Why was she killing Protestants? Was killing Protestants because of the Geneva Bible, which I just showed you, which made people to stand up against their kings and queens for all the atrocities they were committing against their own people, because the Bible made them free. Remember, I started telling you at the beginning of the story, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. Right? She was killing Protestants. Now, until her death, it was from Mary's executions, all right, and killing of people, that people started in Europe and all around the world started running all the way to the United States of America, or the Americas as it was at that time. All right, does it make sense? So I'm going to read something else. I'm going to show you another timeline. Now, Queen of England and Ireland, Mary, right, was succeeded by Elizabeth I. I'm still on the web page of Mary, Queen of England. I'm connecting the dots now so you can see the story. So we go to Elizabeth I, the next queen after uh, the Queen Mary itself. Now Elizabeth I, as you can see here, was she was born 1533, and she was queen until 1603. Now, I want you to take note of that date because the next date is going to be very, very important. Now, which year was the King James Bible made? 1604. And Elizabeth was died at 1603. Now, who was the successor of Elizabeth I after Queen Mary? All right. The next successor was James I. Let's find out who James I is. He's James 6 and 1. James 6 and 1. He was born 19 June 1566 and died and was died 27 March 1625. Was King of Scotland as James 6 from 24 July to 1567. Now, this is the King James, from where you have the authorized King James Bible. There's a reason why that Bible was called authorized King James, because here's what really happened. Like I showed you, like I said earlier, the Geneva Bible was a threat to every king and every queen. All right, because it was translated in several languages with those notes of the early church reformers. We'd made people understand that you don't have to do anything to, or you don't have to be subject to any king or queen who does not, all right, who does not rule according to the word, according to the Bible. So this angered James 6. Now, by this time, you have to understand that studying the Bible was illegal. Now, even though a lot of kings and queens saw the truth of the Bible and started rebelling against the Roman Catholic Church, of which King James himself was also a rebel, what happened was that he still had to face his own people. So he's rebelling against the Roman Catholic Church or the Vatican. But here the Bible is also saying, the Geneva Bible also here is saying that people should not, all right, respect him as a king or queen if he did not rule according to the Bible. Now you have to know kings and queens all have excesses, right? So King James now started to translate the Bible so he could remove those notes that told people that because there's a lot of, like, if you go to places like I think there's a portion of the Bible, I don't actually remember where it is, where it says that we should pray for kings and queens and be subject to kings and queens. The Geneva Notes said that you do not have to be subject to any king or queen who did not rule according to the Bible, who was wicked or treacherous. All right? So King James, even though he was rebelling against the Roman Catholic Church, he still had a problem with the Geneva Bible. So he didn't want the Geneva Bible to be read anymore at church services. Or he didn't want people to have it because they were not read at church service. They were not allowed. So he had to now translate his own Bible into English. Now remember, the Geneva Bible is a threat. Nobody's reading it publicly so that you don't get into problems. Now here comes King James. And remember, the whole world at this point, right, is mostly English lands, the Commonwealth lands. And they're all subject to the Vatican. And now you have a problem. The Geneva Bible is a problem. And then King James now wants to even make it of a greater problem because he wants to translate it and make it public to everybody else so that they stop reading the Geneva Bible and read the King James Bible. Does it make sense? So he starts translating the Bible into his own language, so to make it the authorized, accepted version to be read to people and churches, because he would have taken out the notes that said that you don't have to respect any king who was not working or doing things according to the Bible. So now this started a problem. So already the Roman Catholic Church is facing a Protestant Reformation started by the Geneva Bible, all right? And now you have the Greater Kingdom of England, all right, wanting to translate the Bible into its own native tongue to wipe out the Geneva Bible. It's now even a greater problem because more people are going to have access to it to read and study and see. And the power of the Pope is going to be diminished. Now, before I go any further in this story, I have to let you know that King James was not what you're looking at him today. Now, before I go any further, there is something I have to say on this particular video. Now, I want you to understand that it doesn't matter if you're white, black, yellow, or blue. I want you to understand that human beings are wicked. All right? We've all committed wickedness to our fellow brothers and sisters, irrespective of the color or ethnicity that we bear. Before I go any further, I just want you to say that if you've watched it up to this point. Now, let me show you what King James looked like. So, I'm going to show you what King James looked like. And here is what King James looked like. It is not the white washing that you see here. As you can see, these are the facial features of a black man. Now, somebody may ask, where was this picture gotten? Now, this picture was gotten from a book called King James 6 and 1 and the Reign of Christendom, right here. Now, why do we have this particular picture? All right, it's because back in the day, when you wanted to cement your image such that it can be erased, you did it in stone or you did it in cloth. All right, the Egyptians started that. They carved themselves into stone, knowing that it's going to take a great amount of effort to change their images because it would show that it was changed. Another thing was, if you wanted to put yourself, immerse yourself such that it can be changed, you do it with cloth. You put a drawing of yourself into cloth. If someone tried to change the images of the cloth, it would show that those images were changed. So that's why you look and see that this is a black man's facial features and not the whitewash features that you have of King James over here. All right? So I'll get back into the story of how the Vatican happens to be white today as we get along, because like I'm saying, it's a long video. I'm going to tell you the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So here we get back to the story of King James now translating the Bible, trying to wipe out the Geneva Bible and make it the authorized Bible to be read in churches across the land, the English lands and kingdoms, which were rebelled against the Roman Catholic Empire, which was started by the Reformation of Martin Luther. So now the Roman Catholic Kingdom, the Vatican, and the Pope now have a problem on their hands. More people, they already had a problem with the Geneva Bible, letting people know who they really were. And now you have King James who wants to translate it. And because the Geneva Bible is underground, now he wants to make this not underground and again, but to make it public. So people wouldn't have to read the Geneva Bible, which had notes concerning kings and queens in authority. Okay? So the gunpowder plot was started. So I want you to take note, because remember I told you to take note of the dates. All right. Now the King James Bible, the history now says the King James Bible, also known as the King James Bible or simply Authorized Version, is an English translation of the Christian Bible for the Church of England, began in 1604 and completed in 1611. So when King James started to translate the Bible, all right, in 1604, the Vatican said, wait a minute here now. We are fighting the Geneva Bible and we're doing great. And now this rascal over here wants to translate it and make everybody now read it so that he can wipe out the Geneva Bible that we're fighting against. This is even a greater threat. We have to kill him. So the gunpowder plot was started. Let me go back to that. My page is messing up. All right. The gunpowder plot was started to destroy the translation of the Bible in 1605, a few months after King James commissioned the translation of the Bible into English and to make it the authorized Bible to be read in churches and people could have all across the land. So the gunpowder plot was started. All right, as you can read here, I'm going to show you here because if you want to know much about this, I talk about it a little bit more on the videos of Beyonce Part 2 and the Prince Charles video. But I'll just read to you a little bit. It says the gunpowder plot of 1605, in earlier centuries often called the gunpowder treason plot or the Jesuit treason, was a failed assassination attempt against King James I of England and VI of Scotland by a group of provincial English Catholics led by Robert Gaspee. This is disinformation right here on the wiki page. Because the reason why they wouldn't tell you is because of this Bible, right? That was going to be translated in 1604. So all you need to do is look at the timeline. Translation of the Bible started in 1604. The gun plot to kill King James, who started that translation, 1605. It is not a coincidence. And the guy who led the gun plot, known as Guy Fawkes, if you look at the date, all right, on which he died, on which he was caught, 5th November 1605, showing you what really happened. So I've given you the history, all right, of why the Vatican hates the Bible. Now, what I'm going to show you now is why racism, all right, is being used. So, to understand why racism is at the forefront today and that the people behind it is the Vatican, I've told you of this story up till now for you to see what the Vatican was dealing with at that point in time. Now, this whole entire story I'm telling you up till now, you have to understand that every person that I've narrated in this story were black people. Black people. Now, there was a race war raging, let's say, during this particular time. But you have to understand that the Vatican in its current iteration right now is white. They were not always white. I'm going to explain that why, because like I'm saying, up till this point in time that I've narrated the whole story of King James translating the Bible and everything else, Europe was still a black country. They had wars, but they had race wars. Now, this race war had started in Asia, all right? Started in Asia and drifted into Europe. Now, you can imagine the whole empire is at war amongst itself, right? The Roman Catholic Kingdom. You have succeeding kings. You have people who don't agree what you're saying. So there's whole chaos. And there's also a race war. All right? Now, the race war started in Asia and kept drifting until it got to Europe. Now, the climax of this race war, which has been going on for a couple of centuries, let's say maybe 100 years prior to this event, culminated in what we call the 30 Years' War in Europe. You have to look that up and read about the 30 Years' War. But when you read, I want you to read with your mind open, all right, so you can understand what's going on. All right, so this race war drifted into Europe. And the people who won the race war were actually white people. So they overthrew kings and queens and some of the kings and queens, in order to maintain their legacy, had to marry, the so-called white people who had invaded through Asia into Europe. Okay? Now you have to understand something, all right? Here is the term when it says that if you go black, you can never go back. All right? This is the right terminology to be used here. You have to understand that when a white person marries a black person, the children are automatically black. Why is that so? Because being black is the natural state of all human beings. Now, somebody may say, what are you talking about? What I'm saying is this, that white people are black people who have an abnormal, all right, genetic defect that does not allow their body to produce melanin. That is a scientific fact. I'm not going to argue with anybody on that. All right? White people, I'm saying it again. White people are black people which have an abnormality, all right? A genetic defect that does not allow them to produce melanin. Because being black is the natural state of everybody. Okay? So before I go further into the story, I have to say it again. White people are black people, all right, who cannot produce melanin in their body. So somebody might say, okay, how come white people have straight hair and black folk have nappy hair? Well, you have to understand that straight hair is not synonymous with being white. When Columbus landed in the Americas, the so-called red Indians were black people with long fine hair as well. If you go to places in Africa, there are black people with long fine hair from Ethiopia to Angola and down. So long fine hair is not just synonymous with being white. It's a black thing. So going back into the story of that, when these people, white people, invaded through Asia into Europe and overthrew kings and queens and the Vatican as well, they took over everything. In order for kings and queens to be on the throne, they had to marry, all right, or be bred into being white. So that's why, that's on how black Europe lost its color and started being white, right? So you have to understand, for example, that if any white person marries a black person, the child is always going to be black. So it's going to take like 3 generations to wipe out a black person. So for example, a white person marries a black child, marries a black person, the child is black. If this child still wants to maintain his blackness, he has to marry another black person. All right? If he marries a white person, the child that comes out of that relationship is totally going to be white. It's bred out. Okay? So the natural tendency for people, for the world, is to tend to be black because that's your natural color. Black is the concentration of all color. Even the word humankind means to have color because hue means black. Don't worry about the Vatican might try to explain to you and confuse you, all right, about it. Hue means black, means to have color. So humankind means mankind has color. All right? So when this happened, when the so-called white people of the race won Europe and infiltrated into Europe and took over everything and infiltrated the Vatican, they are still the ruling class of the Vatican till today. So now in order for the Vatican to keep its power, you have to create or breed white people as subjects. So there's a lot of breeding programs which are undisclosed, which have been going on around the world in making sure that there is enough white people. That is the reason for racism. Because if, for example, the Vatican doesn't have enough white people, it doesn't have enough claim to be the ruling class in the world. Does it make sense? So imagine, let's say, for example, you have a village of 100 black people. and there's only 2 or 3 white people, all right, saying that they're the kings and queens of these black folk, what do you think is going to happen? Is that kingdom going to be able to be maintained? No. So the Vatican has to breed, all right, and continue making racism possible, so that the tendency in which, right, the natural color of a human being, all right, which is black, tends to be, will not will not come to fruition, so that they can still maintain themselves as the ruling class. That is the reason for racism. So when you watch your TV, especially in America and around the world, all right, showing you, and the Vatican still perpetuates racism in the sense that they give white people benefits. So if, for example, I am white, and I benefit from a system that's giving me the best jobs, all right, putting me in positions of power, and making black people far more less than I am, what do you think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna maintain the system of racism because I'm benefiting from it. So that is the way it works. Okay? That is the reason for racism and the maintenance of it. So anything you read in your local propaganda news channels, which are owned by the Vatican, talking about, racism and everything, and making racism to be more prevalent in society, is just because of that. When you hear people like LeBron James make statements like being black in America is tough, I'm not saying there is no racism in America, but he's propagating it even more, making it to be in your conscious mind that to be racist is what it is. Okay? So, to add to that, the Vatican will keep maintaining and feeding false lies about melanin and race. There's no such thing as race. There is no such thing. We have ethnicities. There is only one race. It's human. Okay? So don't get sucked into this ideology about race, because the Vatican is the one propagating it for them to maintain the system of authority and still be in power. All right? So what happens is, like I've said earlier, that white people are just black people who have lost the ability to produce melanin. And you can understand that 2 white people can never produce a black baby. It's never been possible. White people can produce black, this is biological and scientific fact. White people can produce black children. But blacks have produced every color of skin or hue under the sun. This is fact. So white people are just generally black people who have lost the ability to produce melanin. Is an abnormality. It's a skin deficiency. All right? It's a genetic defect. So anybody at all who's less than black, all right, has a genetic deficiency of melanin. And it's just not melanin in the skin, because when you hear stories like when the Vatican tells you, like, for example, that when you get into the sun, all right, if you don't have enough melanin, that you can develop things as cancer or sunburn. The sun don't hurt nobody. It's been scientifically proven. You can go look this research up and do your investigation on your own. If you stay longer in the sun, all right, that sunburn is gonna heal. Your skin is gonna become healthier. The sun never hurt nobody, all right? And one of the lies they tell you is that melanin is produced in melanocytes in the skin. It's not true. So the question you have to ask to understand that is not true is this, okay? When you get exposed to the sun and you blacken up, how can you be black without your central nervous system and your brain telling your skin to be black. Because it's your body, your brain, and your central nervous system that controls everything in you. It's the one who sends the messages to the skin and tell it, get darker. That tells the melanocytes in the skin, get darker, because you're absorbing the benefits of the sun. The sun never hurt nobody. So don't fall into that scam and saying that, the sun is going to hurt you. The Vatican wants you sick, because the longer you stay out in the sun, the far better for you. That's why our great-grandfathers lived longer, because they were in the sun much more often. Being in the sun much more often, you get all the benefits of the sun. You get healthier. But the Vatican tells you this lie so you can continue being sick. Right? You love your AC houses and your AC cars and everything. You don't want to stay out in the sun, so you continue being sick. And we'll get all the benefits. You won't be strong enough to stand up against the Vatican and the New World Order. That's the reason for all those crazy lies. So that's the short story I wanted to tell you guys today. I know it's taken quite a long time to get to this particular point, but this is the point that we switch back to the subject matter of Shakira. All right, so let's get into Shakira. So before I get into Shakira, as usual, I'm gonna play a short clip to show you where a woman's hip is at. And when we're done playing the clip, then I'll show you the document and show you where a female has to have an arch in her back, and then we get into Shakira proper. So here we go. I want you to notice where this female's hips is at. The widest point on a woman's body, it's a hip. In most cases, a woman's shoulder can be wider, all right, than her hips. That is fine. It's not a problem. But the arch and the widest point below that pelvis is always going to be below her crotch, because the female pelvis has a wide pubic arch of 120 degrees or more. Standard anywhere in the world. When you're measuring a woman's hips, when you're fitting into clothes, the tape is going to go around the widest point, which is below the crotch. So I play for you to see this. The tape's going to go around the widest point, as you can see. And as you can see, tape's going to go around. I want you to note, as you can see, it's below the crotch. Okay? This female's going to turn around so you can actually know where that crotch line is. So she's going to spin around as I'm playing. So she spins around, and as you can see, the widest point on that hip, all right, is just below the bum line of a female. So that's the video I wanted to play. So the next thing I have to show you is the document. And here is a document. Now today's document, today's particular video, we're going to take a short diversion. I usually never point this out in most of my videos, but today I'm going to point it out because it's necessary. Now what I want you to notice is that a female always has an arch in her back. The arch is going to be shaped like a C. All right? C, as you can, if you follow my mouse right in there. A man's back doesn't arch. If a man's back wants to arch, it's going to arch outside. It's going to be in the shape of a D or a P. If a man tries to fake an arch in his back, it's going to form an awkward, harsh angles like an L. Now, there are tricks in which a man can try to put an arch in his back. One of the tricks they can do is try when they're standing, they can put one foot forward and arch the back. Or they can lean and contour or wear heels to put an arch in the back. So you have to notice the arch in the back right in there of a female is going to be a C. If a man tried to arch his back, it would be an L. A woman always has to have an arch in her back. Why? Because she's going to get pregnant. And because the pelvis is also tilted forward, so a baby can stay inside the womb. Now, I usually don't say this on my videos, because I don't think it's necessary, but if you read the document, you will see that I say that. Where a female's elbows, because a female's body, all right, naturally, the shoulder width of a woman is always shorter than the hip width, okay? So because the shoulder width is shorter, a woman has a problem with her hands. She doesn't have enough support in her hands. So her hands, right, have to be resting just where her hips start. Does it make sense? So because the pelvis is tilted forward, the female's shoulder is shorter, the width length is shorter, the elbows tend to come to rest exactly where the curve of a female starts, where you start having that hourglass figure. So if you're looking at my mouse right here, you see where this elbow's at, right? The elbow is in between the curve. If you're a female, go check that out. Your elbows are going to align with where the curve, that arch in the female back starts. With a man, as you can see here, right? See where his elbow's at? It's higher up above where his waist, right, actually is. Does it make sense? Now, I'm going to scroll further down so you can see that a female always has to have an arch in the back. The back is always going to be shaped like a C. So a female's back is always going to arch more when she bends or does anything, as you're looking at the female right here. The back is arching, C shape, all right? I'm going to scroll further down a bit more so you can actually see that. Doesn't matter how, if the female is big or small, as you can see, arch in her back, as you can see right here. And the elbows, as you can see, align with where the arch starts. There's a small female on my right and a big one on my left, but the elbows are always aligned at where the arch is, all right? It does not matter if the female has muscles. There's always going to be an arch in the back. And the elbows, as you can see here, right, on this female, align with where her arch starts. Can you see that? Align there, all right? Arch in the back of female. So let's get into Shakira to show you what's wrong with Shakira right here. Now, here is Shakira. And if someone looks at this, you probably see how lovely and lovenly this thing looks. It seems like he has a butt that we never get to see, but we've never seen Shakira in a bikini on a beach. But it has a glowing butt here. But what do we notice? The back is straight. But she's trying to put an arch in her back, and that's what I'm going to show you. The feet position. See how one leg, right, is bent and one standing straight? That's how a man tries to put an arch in his back. But let's continue so you can see what's wrong with Shakira. See the stance again. The leg, one leg's put forward, trying to put an arch in this back. But this back is straight. It's not arched. And he's done a lot of like surgery to the butt area, right, to make it look this lovely. But this is a dude. So more things to show you, all right? Here is Shakira again. And what do you notice? See how long the back starts and where the arch is supposed to be? And see where the elbows are very high? Because this is a male body, right? So let me show you what a proper female looks like. I'm going to use two female. One female is going to be short. Her name is Paige Van Zandt. She's an MMA fighter. And the other is going to be Carly Claus, who's a very tall lady and a supermodel. So let me show you what I mean. First of all, let's check out their heights, all right? So we're going to say Paige Van Zandt, right? That's the name of the lady in question. Height. Let's see how tall she is, all right? And she is 5'4", okay? Let's see how tall Shakira is. Height. Let's see height again here. 5'2". So she's just 2 inches taller. Paige Van Zandt is just 2 inches taller than Shakira. Now let's find out the height of Carly Claus, okay? Carly Claus. Height. Kali Kloss is 6'1". So let's get back into our pictures. So we're gonna pull a picture. This is a picture of Shakira over here, showing you that the elbows are way too high above where the supposed, even though he doesn't have an arch in his back, or where the supposed arch is gonna be. All right. Now let's pull up Paige Van Zandt right here. All right, and pull this picture side by side. I'm sorry, I can't blow up Shakira's picture anymore. I think it doesn't get any bigger. I'm gonna try as much as possible so you can actually see. All right, and we're gonna pull this side by side and show you. Let me try to reduce this a little bit more so you can see. Now, where do you see the elbows of Paige Van Zandt? It's aligning, right? It's resting on where the female curve starts. It's aligning with it. If you're a female, go look this up. The curve is aligned with the hips. I'm going to pull another female, the tallest female amongst all of them that I intend to use for this particular video here, which is Kali Kloss. All right. I want you to see, see where Kali Kloss's elbows at? It's aligned with the curve, where the curve starts. I'm going to show you another picture of Kali Kloss so you can actually see some more. All right, here's Kali Kloss again. See where those elbows at? They're aligned with the curve because it's female. Showing you another picture again. All right, of Kali Kloss again. And this one, she's putting one arm, she's throwing one arm out. So we're not going to put this arm in question. This one we're going to put right here. It's aligned with the curve. And what do we have over here with Shakira? See where the hand's at? And see how far and distant the supposed curve is? Because this is male. And this are females. If you didn't see, pull that up again. See where the line's at? See where the line of Paige Van Zandt's at? Another picture of Kali Kloss again because she's taller. So it doesn't matter. What I'm trying to show you, it doesn't matter if you're tall or short. All right? That elbow of yours, if you're female, is going to rest. It's going to align with the body because the shoulders are shorter. So the elbows find a rest point. And a woman's hands from the elbow always twists out. It's never straight because of this. It's just the skeletal structure of how females are built. So let's go further into supposed Shakira to show you what's wrong. Is that a male face? Yes, it is. Is this a female face? No, it ain't. Some more pictures. This one is Photoshop, but how can you see? This is just Photoshop, so I'm just going to leave this. I'm not even compare that, all right? Let's go for another picture, all right? Where's the widest point on this hip? Right? It's above the crotch. Where's the widest point? See where it's sticking out? Right there, the widest point? It's right above the crotch. It's not below it as should be where from you. You can't see it. And this is even Photoshop, made to look beautiful. I'll show you another picture later on that. And look at this. It's trying to put an arch again. 1 foot forward, trying to arch the back, but it's still straight. And look at the tummy. It's not a tilted pelvis. It's still straight. 1 foot forward. Male. This was the Photoshop, but you can see that. It's a straight back. There's no arch. It's male. And look at how large the rib cage is. We'll show you the rib cage later. Here's another picture. Can you see that? See where the elbow's at and see where the curve is at? Because this is male. It's not female. All right? Why did I even put up this picture? Maybe I was trying to take a look at the stance. But it's irrelevant at this point. It's the wide neck I wanted to show you. The neck is too wide because a man's skull is heavier on top. It's normal architectural design. You have something heavy on top, you have to have a wide support base to support it. All right? Men have 10% more brain matter than females. That's the reason why they have wider necks and they have larger trapezius muscles to support the longer shoulder length. This is a man, not a woman. Shakira again, now standing with, can you see the difference now? Straight standing straight with not pulling one feet forward and one backward to put an arch. And what do you see? It's a straight back. And see, no tilted pelvis, straight pelvis of a man. Okay. Here's the further picture I wanted to show, which is more clear, much more clear. Where's the widest point on this hip? See that? It's above. It's above. It's above the crotch. There is nothing here to show you that you're looking at a female. The widest point on this hip is above the crotch. Take a look. Look all you want. I couldn't even find a picture of her in bikini because they're hiding stuff from you. This is male. All right? Still that same thing. No arch in the back. Straight down. There's no arch. This is a bum area shaped by Brazilian butt lifts and contours, which he doesn't even show in a bikini for a sex symbol. Very weird. Okay. See, still trying to put an arch in that back, and see how awkward it looks. Straight back. See the way it's bending with such a large rib cage, right? This rib cage is way too large. I'll show you what a female rib cage is supposed to look like in a minute. Let me pull the picture of Van Zandt over here, the MMA fighter. And what do you see? See where the rib cage ends and where the elbows start? Where does this rib cage end? See how large it ends? And see where the elbows is? This is male. This is female. Some more pictures. Look at that again. It's a straight back, straight into the pelvis. This picture is taken at an awkward angle, but you can still see it's a straight back. All right? And see how large the rib cage is? See the distance from the rib cage to the breasts? See that? That's a male rib cage. Way too long downwards. See this? Where it ends? Oh, because this is male. All right, some more pictures. See that again? See how large the rib cage is? See where it ends? Because it's male. It's not female. See that again? It's a straight back. Straight. When a woman pulls her hands up, you're going to see more of that hourglass figure. But this is all straight. Because this is male. And this is a man sitting down. Can you see the shoulders now? Now I'm using all the subjective definitives because I've got the definitives right, which is the hips and the spine, right? This is a man. All right, some more pictures. Now, can you tell that that's a very straight back? If a female tried to arch her back, you wouldn't see this. It would arch like a C in here, not this L shape that you see. A C right in here, all right? And see how long the back is? Because this is male, not a woman. All right. See that again? Straight. Way too long. Where is the arch? Straight. The Brazilian butt lift and everything is making it look like it, but it's not. You're supposed to see a C in here, not this figure. All right. This is male. And see, this is what I wanted to show you about the arms again, so you could properly see. All right. See that? See where the elbow's at? And see where the curve is? I draw a line. The elbows are supposed to be here because this is male. The elbows are way too long. Comparison again so you can see. Look at this female. Van Zandt. If I draw a line, where do you see? It's close. They are tucked in. See? Tucked in line. See where the elbow lines up? See how it lines up? This one is way too far. Where is the elbow right there? I don't see it. See? Way too far. Way too far. I showed you with another female in this. See, it lines up with the curve. Rest at the curve. Because these are females. Right? These are females. Let me see if I can pull another picture of that. That crashed. I was trying to show you again. Let me see. And this is female. See that? The line of the curve lines up with the elbows. The line of the curve doesn't line up with the elbow because this is male. All right, some more pictures. It's still the same picture, but still showing you. See that? It's Photoshop. The background is taken out this time, but you can still see the line of the curve doesn't line up with the elbows because this is a man. All right. This picture is irrelevant. I wanted to show you on this one that it's a butt implant. Can a female's butt be this way? Can you see that right there? See the way it's awkwardly shaped? No woman's butt puts up this kind of stuff because this is a butt implant. This is male, Shakira. All right, see that again. The elbows don't line up. See how straight the back is and how large the rib cage is? Where the elbows at? Away from the curve, because this is male. All right, look at it again. Straight back. Whoo, straight back. There's no arch in that back. It's straight, straight. See that? Straight, straight. Right? Because this is a man. Same picture, already showed you that before. Same picture again. Another picture. Straight, straight back. Face of a man. All right. It's trying to put an arch, but you can still see it's straight, straight, straight. It's no C. Straight, straight back. A man trying to arch. So that's why you can, make role models and fall in love or have a crush on people on TV, because you could be thinking you're liking a dude or thinking you're liking a female, but it's actually a dude. See that? The Vatican is messing things up. I already showed you this picture, did I? But I'm showing you the straight back again. Straight, there is no arch. Straight into the pelvis, no arch. There is no C in there because this is male. Where's the widest point on this female? Nope. Can you see? I don't see it because this is male. Straight back again. You can see still trying to put an arch. Straight, elbows way too high. Up above the crotch. Or up above where it's supposed to be or where the line of coverage is supposed. It's tilting, trying to put an arch. 1 foot, trying to align the elbows, but it's not. It's way too high. This is the right one. See? Elbows are way too high. This is male. I already showed you that. Showed you another one here. Straight back. Straight. There is no arch. Straight into the pelvis. This is the pelvis. Straight into the pelvis. No arch in here because this is male. All right. Straight again. Straight back. Straight, straight, straight. See where the line, the elbows are up? Far up. Above where the arch should be. Far up because this is male. Again, straight back so you can see straight. See that? Straight, straight. There's no arch because this is male. And this is a Photoshop of I don't even understand. Can you see what's wrong with this Photoshop? How does this lady's shoulder fit under this man's neck? Because they're not even in the same spot at the same time. This picture looks so fake. Where is his hands at? Okay. Again, straight back. I mean, someone even was pointing it out. Straight, 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 straight. The elbows don't line up. The elbows don't line up with the arch because this is male, right? And this is even Photoshop. Can you see that? See all the lines right here, how jagged it is? Can you see that? See how jagged that is? So even at the beach, this is being Photoshopped. Can you see that? Let me blow that up so you can see pretty well. Blow it up as much as I can so you can see. See how jagged the lines are not meshed wide? See how Photoshop works here? Trying to make this man look feminine. See that? All right, showing you what the Vatican does best. Straight back. This is a man. Straight back. No arch in that back. Oh, I think I've shown enough pictures. See where the elbow's at and see where the line of the arch is. The female indentation, elbows are way too high because this is male. See that again over here? All right. And so with that, I come to the end of today's show. I'm sorry it was long, but I had to tell the truth and tell it like it is. So I advise that you stay tuned and subscribe. I'll leave you with these words. Look with your eyes and see with your brain. If you don't like the videos, please don't comment. Don't watch stupid videos. Sorry about the long length of the video. Thanks and bye-bye.